Welcome to the Living Off Rentals podcast, totally focused on helping you, the listener, build a better life and more freedom through rental property cash flow. Although most people rely on their 9-to-5 to pay their bills, there's a growing number of individuals who live on the income generated from their rental properties. The Living Off Rentals lifestyle looks different for each person, and this podcast and Facebook group examine every aspect. Join me each week to hear from people who are leaving their 9-to-5 and instead choosing to live off rentals. Christian, welcome to Living Off Rentals.
Thank you very much. Very excited to be here, Kirby. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate it, man. I appreciate you taking the time. I'm excited to do this interview. So just to give a little bit of background before we dive into the listeners. So, Christian and I met recently through a Facebook group, actually. Even though we share the same alma mater, we both went to West Point Military Academy. I actually didn't know Christian previously, and then we were both in a West Point entrepreneur Facebook group, and we were introduced to each other and found out that we share very similar backgrounds in terms of serving in the Army and then getting into real estate investing. And I've actually been shocked recently, or surprised more and more, about how many West Point grads and just veterans in general are really in this space. It's kind of cool to see. So yeah, so I'm excited to dive into it and hear more about your background stuff. So I know your background is a lot more in multifamily side, which I want to get deep on, and I know you run a Mastermind Group on that topic as well. So there's a lot we can get into here, and I think a lot that this community will be interested in. So, but first, I'll let you start off with sharing a little bit more about your background and what really got you into pursuing real estate.
Yeah, great question. So I think, well, first of all, I was born in a foreign country. I was born in the Philippines, first generation immigrant here, moved here when I was 6, turned 7, I think the month after we got here, and didn't know a lick of English. Learned English, in fact, watching cartoons, Big Garfield and Fat Albert and Heathcliff were like the shows of the day, and really picked up the language that way.
I learned a lot from those shows too, actually.
And really what I found throughout my childhood was, obviously as a first generation immigrant, had that bug of entrepreneurship and wanting to achieve the American dream. And so, being half American and actually being able to come to the United States and to pursue that was really a great blessing for me. And I think as I grew up, I came across different things, books and things and realized that, man, a lot of the wealthiest Americans either derive that wealth through real estate, or because of that wealth now are into real estate for tax advantage purposes and other things. And as I, graduated from the academy and started my corporate career, was blessed with a lot of different opportunities to continue to advance and grow. And I soon found myself looking for, tax advantage opportunities beyond the typical 401k, et cetera, and found myself researching and delving into real estate in order to pursue that. We did start off with, single family homes, condo, fourplex, which I bought sight unseen, by the way, big mistake. But learned from that mistake, and really over the last, 15 to 18 years, I've learned a tremendous amount. One of the things being that the best way to mitigate your risk is to know what you're doing. And that's one of the things that I talk a lot about in a mastermind, and anytime I'm asked to speak. And really what I mean by that is you're going to learn one way or the other, either cutting your teeth and paying a lot in that form of tuition, the school of hard knocks as they call it, or by way of some type of mentorship or buying into some education program or network. And really that's what we've done within the last couple of years to help propel us to the point where we're at now, where we did start off doing single family homes, some private lending, some wholesaling, but now have really gone full throttle with multifamily apartment investing. So I'm very, very excited about that and happy to share about that transition and where we're at now.
That's awesome, man. That's I know you've kind of had a lot of realizations along the way, similar, I think, to myself on different aspects of real estate investing. And so that's what I like about this platform, is that people can share some of these realizations they had that they're like, man, why have I been doing it this way for so long? And there's a better way to do it. So I want to start off with a question around, we're in this post-COVID world now, and, the real estate market as a whole really hasn't taken much of a hit at this point. We're still in a pretty competitive market. And I still hear people saying all the time, I can't find deals. Deals just don't exist. But I know when we just spoke a couple of weeks ago, you told me that you recently acquired 3 apartment buildings with 130 doors total just in the last 9 months. So obviously you're buying right now, and you've got a lot of LOIs out there, you mentioned. So how are you finding these deals? And I know they're value add deals, which is what are the most competitive in the multifamily space. So what is it that you're doing different?
I think to simplify what I'll say, more than anything is relationships. And second to that is being in the game. Even in the residential space, I will tell you that I think 2 deals that we got was simply because our general contractor connected me with a potential seller, and we ended up wholesaling that property. But had I not been in the game with the general contractor that I was engaged with, had a good relationship with, I wouldn't have found that deal. And we made, I think $15K in a matter of 3 to 4 weeks on that deal. I think similarly, well, let me go back to the broker relationships. One of the things I learned early on is that one of the best ways to find deals is to establish relationships with commercial real estate brokers. And especially if you find ones at a firm that are the junior broker who are trying to establish a name for themselves and are looking to grow alongside yourself. And so that's sort of what I did for our very first deal. And, going to a place like LoopNet to see what's not to see what's available to buy, but rather who is listing those properties is one of the best things that you can do if you're looking to form those types of relationships and get on the mailing list of brokers. I've had to hire an assistant here recently because of the amount of growth we've experienced, but one of her tasks is actually go through my emails and ensure that we're segregating those emails from different brokers, simply because we get so many now. It really just clutters my email. But what I do know from those relationships is that the moment something fits my criteria, I'm getting a phone call. I've got 3 live deals right now. Trying to recall how we sourced all. Yeah, actually, the first one, the one that got accepted just yesterday, but we had a phone conversation with the seller, the broker, and myself. That one got accepted, but that was through a broker relationship, and that was an off-market deal, not listed anywhere, and it was brought to me by that broker because they knew it fit my criteria.
Wow.
Right. One other thing that I've done, really, in an effort to kill multiple birds with one stone, as we like to do as leaders, is I've taken on a couple of guys sort of under my wing, some young fellow West Point grads who are in their own right great real estate investors and have aspirations to learn the multifamily space. And so what we do is I teach them how to underwrite deals, how to find the deals firstly, and then how to then submit LOIs on my behalf. And in that process, they're learning and they're growing, and they just are very grateful for the time, the energy, the mentorship, and at the same time, I'm getting essentially an extension of myself out into the marketplace to find deals. And so they've been very active and have brought deals consistently in front of me. We meet on a bi-weekly basis, and we have one-on-ones every other week. So a lot of things with regards to a lot of different methods, but I would say developing relationships and being in the game are the 2 most important things.
Great advice. So that brings up another question. I get deals like that too, like sent to my email. Brokers have investors set up on auto emailers. What are your steps? Because I find myself with the same issue that you talked about, where your assistant has to sort through it all because there's just so many deals. And with a multifamily deal, I feel like there's a lot more to consider. Like people send me a single family, I can get back to them typically in like 20 minutes. And I know like if it's got deal potential. But multifamily, I feel like there's so many more things to consider. So what are your steps when you get a deal like that, just to screen through initially to know if you should pursue it or not?
Yeah, I think the first thing is, well, you recognize this simply because of the fact that you're doing rentals and you've got a rental portfolio, and you're actively managing a business where you've got income, expenses, and so on. And so very similarly for a multifamily asset, that's exactly what you're looking at is firstly, what do the numbers look like? I don't want to fall in love with the property and its aesthetics and things like that. And then the numbers end up not working out, right? And so the very first thing is what do the numbers look like? So I have to have a trailing 12 months of financials and a current rent roll just to get my eyes even on a deal. I can very well look at that now in a matter of 15 minutes or less and rapidly determine whether this is something that's even worth any more time, just because of repetition and multiple iterations and at-bats. And so that's really what it comes down to is determining, based on the income that this is producing, based on the expenses that it currently has over the last 12 months, what is it performing at today? What I don't want to do, and what someone should be wary of, is accepting what the pro forma rent may be, as they've been suggested by whomever sent you the deal, and accepting the fact that, yes, absolutely, I can increase my rental income by 25% over the next year, which you want to know whether the deal is self-sufficient with its current set of financials, in addition to making some appropriate adjustments to how expenses will in fact increase, because there's a couple of different items, expense line items, that will in fact increase simply because of the transaction. And so taxes being the biggest one. But yeah, you can very quickly tell what the net operating income will be and whether or not whatever amount of debt that you place on that can be supported by that net operating.
That's awesome. So there's a few things that stood out to me there. So there's a big difference between, which I don't think a lot of people realize, the pro forma, which is what you receive a lot of times initially, and the T12, which stands for trailing 12, which are the actuals, right? And so you need to be basing your analysis off of the T12. So always request that. And then you said the T12 and the rent roll are what you receive. What are the main things that you want to see to pursue it to the next level? I know you said you're looking at income and expenses, but is there a specific NOI, net operating income, that you're looking for, or a cap rate that you're comfortable with, or how do you decide to move on with it?
Yeah. It's very interesting because now you get into some of the nuances and some of the complexity, because there are different things where there are different items that folks will look for in order to determine whether it's an asset that fits their investment criteria. Some people may very well have family office money or a fund or something like that, where an asset that produces a 5% cap rate is something that's sufficient for them. For the types of investors that I'm engaging with, we're looking for much greater returns than that. In addition, and I can talk to you about the sort of the gem that we have in terms of one of the properties that we have. It's our most recent acquisition, and the upside that we're experiencing through that's even better than we expected. My investment thesis is buying assets where I can increase value, so force the appreciation, have investors engage with me on those transactions, and then do a cash out refinance that allows me to return the entirety of their capital within 12 to 18 months, no more than 2 years, but 12 to 18 months is the target. And then allocate them an equity position even after they've been paid back at a rate of about 10% or so, and continue to get cash flow throughout the remainder of the deal. And so those deals are very hard to find, but they can be found, and they are out there. And there's going to be a lot more out there, especially given the economic climate and things that are bound to come here over the next 12 to 18 months and beyond.
Yeah. Wow. So just to break it down more in layman's terms for people who don't do multifamily all the time, like myself. So you're raising money from, like, people who are friends of family, people who are interested in investing in multifamily, and they're covering about, so the bank will give you 75% typically. Is that what they're giving you for the purchase?
So the capital markets have shifted over the course of the last couple of months. And typically, just for the sake of simplicity, we can say, yes, 75% LTV is what loan to value is what you might expect. They were more, I think, flexible, I guess, prior to COVID and perhaps going up to 80% LTV. But typically 75%, sometimes even 70%. Depends on the deal and depends on some other facets that would dictate that. But 75% is a good number.
Okay, got it. So that, say $1 million house, the bank will give you $750,000 of the money required for the deal, and then you've got to go out and raise the other $250,000 from investors, and then those investors get to split. Is it 85% of the equity in the deal? Is that typically how it's split, or 80 or?
Yeah, it really depends on how the syndicator structures the deal.
Okay.
I will tell you, the first couple that we've done a 70-30 split where I've allocated 70% to the investors for their role in the deal. Now, it's not just the 25% though that you would be raising, depending on how much work is required. So you've got the renovation piece, right?
Got it.
So that would be part of what you would want to be raising as well: holding costs, transactional costs, etc. And so that all is included there. And depending on the deal, if I'm buying something that is more of a retail priced asset, that's the type of transaction or the type of syndication model I might pursue. If we've got a deep value add opportunity, that's where I'm pursuing something that is what I'm sort of terming as a next level syndication model, where, and this gets a little bit more detailed, but where I'm basically providing more of a private lending approach to the investors, where I'm guaranteeing effectively a certain amount of return in the form of a preferred return.
Got it.
And then returning all of their capital at the point of refinance, and then allocating them equity in the deal thereafter. And so it's unlike sort of a conventional equity position, but more of just a private money investment that they then receive back their principal plus interest, and then are allocated a portion of equity on a go-forward basis. So it seems like that's the type of approach that most people are in favor of, because there's no risk any longer once they get their money back and they can invest it into another deal. And that's where this topic of the velocity of money really comes into play. And that's one of the things that I really like to talk about is the velocity of money. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely want to get into velocity of money. Hold that thought. Cause I had, just to clarify then, so you raise the money from the investors, you do the rehab, and so they basically are getting sort of a fixed rate that they can rely on at that preferred rate. Mm-hmm. And then you refinance the bank, and at that point, the bank will give you 75% of the new value, which is enough to pay off 100% of your investors. And then they still have an equity stake, even though you're paying off all their initial money.
That's correct. So the question then becomes, can you find a deal where you can force the appreciation such that you can do that refinance, retain 20 to 25% of equity in the deal as the lender requires, but then still have enough between the payoff of the prior loan, the underlying loan, and the new loan, and have that amount of proceeds to be able to pay off your investors. And that's really, as an example, the most recent acquisition that we made, which is in Arlington. It's a beautiful property right across the street from Cowboy Stadium. It's pretty amazing. It's a 44-unit deal. Interestingly, and these are where some of the opportunities lie, is that the financials that I received was, I think the best word to use, as my kids would say, was garbage. It really was. And my business partner, or the folks who ended up being my business partner for that transaction, just didn't know what to do with it. She was a realtor herself and just couldn't make sense of the financials. And so when they brought it to me, I was able to underwrite it. I have a great mortgage broker who I work with here locally in Austin, was basically able to confirm what I had concluded, which was this is how much I would pay for it, which was $3.8 million. So the purchase price was 3.8. I knew for that type of transaction that we needed to, and based on the age of the property, that we needed to probably invest about $1 million in terms of renovating it. Well, one of the beautiful things that I saw when I looked at the rent roll was that of the 44 units, 8 of them had already been renovated and were renting at $1,300 per month, whereas 28 of the units were at $750 per month. So the question then became, can I do to these 28 what has been done to those set of 8 to get up to that 1,300? And you fast forward to where we're at now. Firstly, while we had it under contract, all 28 of those went from 750 to 850. That $100 increase alone for those 28 units was equivalent to about $500,000 of increased value, even before we closed on the property.
The old owner raised the rent $100?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And the other thing I saw on the rent roll was that virtually all of the tenants were on month to month, which means that we didn't have to wait a year or 6 months or whatever it was until we could actually start doing work. So based on sort of natural attrition, we started taking 4 units and then another 4 and have started to convert those. And where we stand today is we've got 10 of the 28 completed, not rented at the 1,200. I actually used 1,200 in my underwriting just to be conservative, as you want to do. And all 10 of those are at $1,350 actually. And that's not accounting for any additional income, because one of the things that we're doing, and I can speak to this later, is that in addition to providing what I would like to say is a safe, clean, affordable place for people to live. I mean, the word redeem, we're redeeming properties, we're redeeming the people, the residents that live there, as well as the financial performance of these assets. We're really looking to redeem the properties. And so the thing that we like to do, in addition to providing a clean, safe, affordable place for people to live, is to provide them with value-added services. And what I mean by that is, the utilities that they would otherwise have to incur on their own or pursue, electric, phone, cable, internet, those types of things. This property here had no internet at all. And so a lot of the feedback we got from residents was, hey, my kids are at home from school too, and we don't have Wi-Fi, and my hotspot is not working that well. And so we actually are installing that this coming week. And not only are we installing it so that they have access, we're actually working through a business partner to provide them with internet capabilities. So in other words, instead of them going to Spectrum themselves, they can buy the service through us, and we deliver that service for them. And of course, we have a revenue share situation, and so it adds additional income to our properties. So
wow.
It's just a really neat way for us to be able to continue to serve those residents.
Yeah. Holy cow. So you're hoping that Dallas wins a championship this year, Super Bowl, and that'll probably boost another couple $100, I'm sure.
I think the other thing, and we won't get to all these topics today, but the value of having a property manager such as the one that we have there, they're constantly coming to me with different ideas on how to add additional income. Given that this is literally across the street from Cowboy Stadium, they said, "Oh, you know what? We've established a partnership with a towing company or a parking services company, such that they'll ensure that if people are parking here that are not allowed to park here, they'll of course enforce the towing. But in addition to that, on game days, we've allocated, I think, a total of 8 to 16 parking spots." For game day use, that we would be getting paid a premium for people to be able to park there. And so it's right across the street from Cowboy Stadium, and then the new Texas Ranger Stadium is right next to that. And if I had to walk it, I would say it's about 800 feet, 1,000, maybe a click.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, so no, we're really excited about that. And so what I wanted to say about that is, with that, we raised 1.3, is that right? 1.38 from friends and family and business colleagues. When we do our cash out refinance, and we're ahead of schedule, probably March, April of next year, so less than a year from now. The value of that property we expect to be 6.8, which will enable us to do that cash out refinance, pay off investors, and then they'll continue to retain their ownership position in that deal.
Wow. Yeah. Anytime you can double rent with a renovation, that's pretty impressive, or close to it, I guess.
I guess the thing that I didn't know, and what I was expecting really, Kirby, was that we would need to go and seek out new tenants, because I had no idea whether the current tenants would be able to pay that new market rent, and that's really what the market rent was. And I've just, part of what's been comforting about that renovation project is knowing that we're building and producing a really quality product, but it's one that has been in demand from amongst the existing tenants, but they just weren't able to access because the prior owner didn't invest the resources. So in other words, of those 10 that are already rented out, 9 out of the 10 are from existing tenants.
Wow.
Who were paying that lower rent, who are now ecstatic about the quality of the finishes, the things that we're doing to the property, and are more than happy to pay that new market rate.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, I mean, obviously you can't, every deal isn't going to be like that, but I think what you laid out there initially is a perfect model for people who, they want to understand, how does this multifamily game work? If you can do that, if you can find these, and it's not easy to find these type of deals where you can buy it, do the value add, renovate it, come up with creative strategies like the towing company, and then put it to a point where the value is going to totally pay off your investors. I mean, you're going to be successful. Like, that's just a perfect model. So I appreciate you kind of breaking it down for us in more layman's terms so I could understand it.
No, it's my pleasure. It's a lot of learning. It's been a lot of learning, a lot of experience, mistakes along the way, but it's been exciting. And it's something that I find myself just being very, very passionate about. I do believe, there's we are profit driven and I have to be because I have investors, but I do see there being sort of an altruistic component as well to what I'm doing in terms of revitalizing communities, creating places and environments where children can grow and feel safe. If you are into looking at studies of communities and what helps kids be successful and to thrive, it's where do they rest their head at night, and what kind of communities do they live in. So I'm excited to be able to be making somewhat of a dent in terms of that.
Yeah, that's great. And, you mentioned your property manager. For me, doing mostly single family homes, I'm pretty hands-on. I've got a great GC, but all my stuff is local for the most part, and I manage him pretty closely. Are you you're just picking a property manager and kind of giving them your vision, and then they go out and hire the contractors? They handle the entire renovation, or do you have to be there like once a week to check on it? And
Yeah, I think the benefit that I have is being able to utilize a lot of my business experience from the corporate world, managing large scale business operations, oftentimes remotely from afar, and encompassing the entire country. And so obviously I can't be in all places at once, but the beauty of having key performance indicators and different metrics is simply that you define a number and you define a goal and you report out against that goal, and it will very clearly tell you how we're tracking and how things are going. And so we do have those in place. We meet on a weekly basis via conference call. Myself, I have an asset manager on our team who more readily engages, I would say, on a daily basis with the on-site manager, because while I hired a property management company, they will dedicate a property manager, on-site manager, to see the day-to-day operations. And so my asset manager engages with that person more readily and really on a daily basis to find out at any point throughout the month, how are we doing on rent collections? How many vacancies do we currently have? How many leases do we have? When are they moving in? And a range of other KPIs that we track very closely. And so while I'm not talking to the principal of the property management company on a day-to-day basis, we get our teams together on a weekly basis to see where things are. Now, in the implementation phase, there is a daily reporting of activities because I need to know until we get to the point of stability that things are in accordance with how I envision it and how I communicated they ought to be. And so there is an extensive amount of sort of hand-holding and accountability, which there ought to be, and they understand that, and they're more than happy. And in fact, they're really very proud of the work that they're doing. So it's exciting to see how excited they are about how things are progressing.
Nice. Yeah, it's a great system. And that was the thing that was hard for me to wrap my head around as somebody who's very hands-on. Like, you can actually hire a good property manager who knows the local market. They know contractors in the area, and they can probably actually do it better than you could if you showed up and tried to just do the project yourself. So,
yeah, no, that's exactly right.
Yeah. So you mentioned velocity of money. I'd love to hear more about that concept.
Yeah, no. So I think about someone like my mom who, she's not some top level executive at a corporate firm. She's a certified nursing assistant in San Diego and has been at that job for 25 years, as long as I can remember. And so she doesn't have an extensive amount of capital to be able to invest in these types of deals. And so what I now have the opportunity to do, given what I've learned and the access that I have to these types of assets, is I'm able to help her she invested with us on that deal in Arlington. And what's really cool and exciting is I'm going to be able to return the amount of money that she provided as an investment to her within the next year to say, here you go, Mom. Here's your $25,000 back. And by the way, you'll continue to get a certain percentage from the cash flow. And when we sell this property, you're going to get a chunk at that point as well. Well, while she's waiting for that, she's able to take that same $25,000 she originally invested in this deal and now put it into my next deal. And then we'll execute again within 12 to 18 months and then now put it into the next deal. So the more properties that same $25,000 touches, the more revenue streams that she now has. And so, imagine someone who has 50 or 100,000 or whatever amount of money that they may have. That to me is a far better approach than simply putting it into the stock market, for example, or some other asset where you sort of hope over the course of time that even with the ups and downs that you might get an average of 8% return, not even accounting for the fees and other things that you might have to pay within that type of thing. And I'm not knocking the stock market at all, because I think if you know what you're doing there and you can get your cost basis down or you're investing for cash flow, that's a whole different approach than simply buying low and hoping to sell high. So even within that, there's definitely a lot of opportunities, which I'm exploring some myself. But the velocity of money, I think, is really a magical thing. Because it allows you to sort of compound over the course of time an initial base of money that you invest in that first deal. So the more that you can turn that over and create multiple streams of revenue, you're doing it right.
Such great advice. When I was flipping, I flipped quite a few properties, and we realized that works in reverse as well. If you expect to be using money for 6 months and then a project takes a year, it is incredible how detrimental time is to a project. So, it works both ways. So if you can find a way, to get the exact same return, but you can do it twice as fast, you just doubled your returns. I mean, and then you can reinvest that and it compounds then. And it's just a really powerful subject to dig into.
Yeah, no, I mean, that I think that really ties in well with this concept of forced appreciation, which is another facet of multifamily that I really, really like. Because as you all know, within the multifamily space or within commercial, really in general, the value of the properties is based on the income that it produces, which means that if you're able to take a property and invest in renovating it, improving it such that increasing its occupancy, even I won't give you all my secrets, but what I will say is that there are types of assets in the market now that their highest and best use is not what they were originally designed for. And so
because of COVID, you're saying, or
because of COVID. So you think about the short-term rental space, even, and really what I'm thinking about now and what I'm pursuing is extended stay hotels. So I think you and I may have talked about that. And so, there's an occupancy play. I'm looking at one in Houston built in 2000. So no work required other than fill this thing up. I think as it runs now, occupancy as an extended stay hotel is about 25-30%. We convert that to an apartment, and these units are designed essentially like the same way they would be for an apartment in terms of size, in terms of the number of rooms. It's just a a really great asset. And so now the only thing for us to do is to acquire it and now to increase occupancy and to continue to run it. So not as a hotel, but as an apartment. I think the part that makes that deal the most sweet is that they're willing to sell or finance it, which is uncommon in the commercial space, but that's one that I'm really excited about.
Wow, that's great. That is awesome. I appreciate you sharing that. I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but I do want to hear about the Mastermind Group that you run. Who's a part of that, and what's the intent behind that?
Yeah, so Redeem Investments is the name that we are sort of rebranding to. Over the last 3 years, we've been functioning under Redeem Realty Solutions, and really that's just how we got our start in the residential space. Over the course of time, and really as we've looked at the entirety of the type of service we want to be delivering, we've segmented it into 3 different categories that now all fall under the Redeem Investments brand, if you will. The first one simply being exactly what we've been talking about is actual investments in commercial multifamily assets. Specifically in that space, we're looking at Class B, Class C value-add apartment deals in Class A and B areas. That's really the sweet spot of what we're looking to do. And we're looking at assets that we can force appreciation, have capital preservation, and some of those other advantages that I talked about. The second category for us is what I described earlier, is adding value-added services to those same residents that we serve in the communities that we operate. And that does a couple of things. It provides us opportunity to add services that then they would otherwise have to source elsewhere. But now we can receive a revenue share and increase the income of our property. And then the third bucket is the mastermind. And so one of the needs that I've come across over the course of the time that we've been doing this is that there are people who are aspiring to do what I've been able to do. Although I've only been doing it here for a couple of years, we've had some pretty good success so far and have built some momentum. And there are people who want to do what I'm doing, but recognize, man, there's significant barriers to entry into this space. And I recognize that. And what I'm looking to do is, since I've somehow been able to creep into this space myself, I want to sort of kick wide the door for other people to come in. And I want to do that in the form of a mastermind. And so basically at its core, what the mastermind is and the function that it serves is a formalization of the joint venture program so that people can self-select what roles that they would want to participate in when I identify a property. So does someone want to be, my boots on the ground? I've got a gentleman in Houston who sent me videos of the property that he went and walked for me yesterday because I couldn't be there. And so he is functioning in that capacity already. If someone wants to serve in the capacity of being able to co-sponsor a loan, while I've had some success in the short term here, I'm certainly not where I'd like to be. And I don't have the $5-10 million under my mattress that some of these deals may require in order to qualify for the loans. But I've got people within my network who do and trust me enough and have seen what I've done such that they are willing to co-sign on the loans for these deals and be allocated a certain percentage and so on. There's different roles involved. That's the core of the group. The benefits of being part of the group, though, also include access to all the documents that I have, some of which the legal documents alone, Kirby, I'll tell you, can range between $10,000 to $20,000 to $50,000 by themselves. There are various tools. People have access to the panel of experts that I work with between mortgage brokers, SEC attorneys, real estate attorneys, and so on, and a whole lot of other perks to being part of the group. So I'm really excited to make that available for people.
So if people are listening and getting pretty excited to hear that, how could they get involved with that?
Yeah, so if someone sends an email, they would send it to support@redeeminvestments.com. Our new website should be up and running within the next couple of weeks, and that's simply redeeminvestments.com. And then our mastermind, redeeminvestments.com/mastermind is where they can get more information about that and be able to register. So the thing that I'll say about that as well is that while I'm opening wide the door for people, I also want to be selective about those people who are going to be committed. And so I am sort of capping the number and being selective about who we bring into the group. And so I'm willing to engage with anybody who has questions about it, but certainly want to ensure that the people who are committed to being part of that group and can add value and are willing to participate are the ones that we have in.
Yeah, makes sense. Awesome. Well, thank you very much for all of the knowledge today. Super helpful, and I'm sure the community will really get a lot out of this. And I know it's a Friday afternoon, and it's not the thing that a lot of people want to do is get on and do an interview on Friday afternoon. So I appreciate you taking the time today.
No, this was truly my pleasure, Kirby. I think you're delivering tremendous value to your audience, and really I'm just amazed by what you're doing. So I'm glad to be part of it, and definitely want to add value to you and your audience as much as I can. So hopefully they found some value in this.
Thanks. Yeah. I mean, and if you're watching this or listening to it on the podcast later, you can reach out to Christian. He's in the Facebook group, and if you have any other questions, bring them up in the group, because there's a lot of great people that hang out there. So again, thanks a lot, and we'll keep in touch.
All right. Thanks, sir. Take care.
Thanks.
Hey, hope you enjoyed this portion of the interview with Christian. If you did, give it a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button. If you want to hear the full interview, you can check it out on any podcast player. Just search for the Living Off Rentals podcast. Also, join the Living Off Rentals Facebook community. You can ask any questions there or discuss any rental investing related topics. I hope to see you there. If not, I will see you in the next video. Hey, thanks again for joining us. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you leave a positive review on iTunes, and also head over to Facebook and join the Living Off Rentals Facebook group, where the conversation will continue. Thanks again. See you next time.